So we're looking at principles of games and teaching and learning games and how to teach games and different kinds of games. Now we're also looking at what is appropriate, age appropriate, and so on. Now the traditional model would have been everybody warms up, does a little skill practice and drills, then a minor game and then or a game practice, then cool down. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's a very effective model. The TGFU has the warm up, very purposeful game, something which is teaching a very specific skill or certain strategy. And then the group discusses how can they do it better. The good thing about that is higher order thinking. There's tactical, there's decision making, tactical discussion, technical discussion. Then they go back to the game, and then the game might progress and get more complicated, additional challenges, a new variable thrown in, and then you repeat the cycle with progressive games, and then a cool down. With the TGFU model, you're not going to do a soccer unit. You might do a kicking unit, and then various kicking games within that unit. It's just sort of a different method of looking at things. Very, so the one on the left, traditional model, is not wrong. It's probably just more effective to do the TGFU model. And we've talked a little bit about the TGFU previously. As far as the transfer of knowledge, we know that as you improve one skill, other skills are going to benefit. As you improve one, activity, one, locomotor movement or one specific skill, it's easier to learn and easier to improve at the others. The complexity, a simple thing like bowling, the pins don't move. You don't have to, catch anything. It's just rolling the ball. Well, it gets more complicated as you move down. As you move all the way down, think about how many variables there are in say hockey. You're trying to keep your balance. You're trying to avoid other people. You're switching from offense to defense instantly, frequently. You're having to look at strategies, and there's so much more to it. So it's a lot of times you have to think about that progression, but also the transfer of knowledge. Research supports the transfer in motor skill acquisition. Motor skills and movement patterns developed for one activity make a person more likely to be successful in another physical activity. So when you're choosing your game, what's appropriate to practice your skills, you need to think of how simple. The simple is going to go to the younger age groups or the lower developmental level. The more complex are those that are ready. One system I really, really like is everybody starts with a certain activity, and then once they achieve a certain task within that, then they move up to the next one. Then they move up to the next one, and the games get more and more complicated. There's more strategies, multiple skills involved, and so on. So you progress at your own rate. So that's a very effective system, and then everybody's working at the appropriate level. First kind of game we're looking at is invasion games. These are the most complicated because there's a lot of strategy involved. Games where the purpose is to invade the opponent's territory while scoring points and keeping the opponent's team points to a minimum, all within a certain time period. These have sports where the ball is being carried or caught across a line, thrown to a shot, to a target or a hoop, or hit with a stick or a foot with a specific target area. The definition comes from Pearson and Webb, 2008. Now, invasion games are the most strategic type of games because there's so many transferable skills. It's also most complex. Example is rugby, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, football, ultimate frisbee, and water polo. Teams move or score by moving the ball into another territory or shooting into a fixed target. And you have to solve offensive and defensive problems that require similar tactics in one game to the other. So oftentimes as you get good with one, you're going to get good with the other one because a strategy that works in soccer is going to work in water polo. A strategy that works in basketball might work in hockey, or just a slight variation. Offensive players' job is to move the ball and position themselves so they can receive passes from teammates and threaten the goal. Defensive components of the invasion game are similar in that players must mark opponents and put pressure on the ball carrier. Net wall games, as the implies, there's a net or a wall involved. They consist of two opposing teams or individuals. They're divided by a net, where they may share a similar playing field. So, for example, a racquetball has the wall. The object of the game is to transfer an object in the opponent's court within the boundaries so they're unable to return it. Netball games vary according to court size and type, whether the ball is allowed to bounce or not bounce, and how many times it can bounce. They can be divided into two categories, with and without rackets. Badminton, tennis, and table tennis are examples of netball games that involve a racket. Volleyball is an example of one that does not. Squash, Gaelic handball, and racquetball are example of wall games. Volleyball is an example of a netball game without a racket. That's where volleyball is where you play volleyball on a squash court, and the walls are considered in play. Tactical goals in netball games have a degree of complexity involved. Some skills are obviously more complex than others. It's important to remember that when teaching a high-level skill such as an attack in volleyball, that you work up to the skill last. You have to do the previous skills first, such as bumping, and then once those skills are mastered, then you can work towards the more complex skills and ones that require tactics and strategies. Now, netball games develop many skills that are transferable later on in the students' athletic careers. Many of these games develop spatial awareness and court positioning. This transfers to other athletics as well. Think about the importance of court awareness and spatial positioning in basketball and football and such. The ability to quickly stop and change direction is vital, key in gaming and controlling the court. Spatial awareness in particular can also be transferred outside of netball games. It's a very important skill and a basic component of many games. The use of trajectory, depth, angles of attack are also fine-tuned by participating in netball games. Those terms can also really be used as cross-curricular support when the students are taking physics or physical world concepts and learning certain terms. This is a perfect way to apply those and give real-world meaning to those. Striking and fielding games, baseball and softball is people think of first. Cricket, although not as popular in the United States, is popular in other parts of the world. Now, it's very popular. There's an inherent weakness in striking and fielding games is often there's an inherent amount of sitting around. If you think about baseball, you are waiting your turn to bat, waiting your turn in the field. So baseball and softball, although are lifetime fitness activities in America and in many other parts of the world as well, they're not the best activity. And so that's just something that needs to be considered in the amount of time and effort to put, or the amount of time put in the physical education program. Main concept behind striking and fielding games is that when you're on offense, you're striking an object, such as batting in baseball. When you're on defense, you're fielding the object, such as throwing the ball in the cricket game. Players can often score on offense by hitting the object into an open area and then advancing to a designated area. Players on defense will attempt to stop the offense by scoring by catching the object while it's in the air before it hits the ground and bringing it to a specified area before a player gets there. Tracking a player will have to be able to predict the path of the object in play. There's also variations of baseball and softball. There's cricket, slow pitch, 3-pitch, soccer baseball, tennis baseball, rounders, lob ball, and many others. So there are many variations of just the classic game of baseball. Striking and fielding games are an excellent way to teach fundamental skills such as catching, throwing, running, and striking. There's three types of skills involved. There's a locomotor, non-locomotor, and manipulative skills. And these skills that are practiced can transfer over to other sports and other athletics as well. Now, target games, golf, archery, and disc golf. There's very effective, and there's a lot of adults that get their lifetime fitness from golf. A lot of adults that get it from disc golf is getting more popular. And archery, there's if you think about boar hunting, where you do a lot of hiking in the woods to go hunt with the with the bow and arrow and such. Now, golf, more and more, the people are not walking the course, but riding a course. Now, if you ride 18 holes of golf, you're actually still burning a lot of calories because you have to walk from the cart to the ball and back, especially if you're parking on the path. And then actually, there's the explosive nature of the golf swing. So you actually are burning a lot of calories. If you're walking in 18 holes of golf, you're walking give or take 7 miles plus you do the explosive golf swing. There's actually a lot of calories burned. So when we're teaching golf, we need to emphasize to walk it. Although that sometimes courses, especially on weekends, are so busy they really want people riding the carts. But save money and you get more health benefits from walking. As far as archery, just the inherent nature of archery doesn't burn a lot of calories, but if you're hunting and hiking with it, it does. And it's only suitable in certain areas. If you're in an inner city, archery is probably not the best choice. But if you're in a very rural environment, archery just might be how people are working out there. Now, when it comes to that, we want to emphasize the hiking and not just riding the truck to as close as humanly possible to get to that animal. Disc golf is getting more and more popular. People can spend a lot of money on it, but ultimately you need a frisbee. A lot of times people have multiple frisbees, but it actually can be a very cheap, very good way to spend an afternoon with some physical activity and walking involved. A lot of target games we need to evaluate the usage of. If you pull out a magazine that sells athletic equipment, go for one of those magazines that sell phys ed stuff, you're going to see things like cornhole. Now, is that really the best use of our physical education time? I'm going to say no. On a basic rule, I think physical education should not be spent doing things where people typically do it with a beer in hand. Just let me say, not everyone drinks that plays cornhole, but we all know what happens at many tailgating at many athletic events. So you do need to think about how much time should be spent on this, and that's a value judgment. And we ultimately physical education should be geared towards a lifetime of fitness activity and physical literacy. Target games, a person either throws, slides, or strikes an object with the goal of having the object land closest to or in the designated target. Target games can be in the form of a team sport, individual, and there can be opposition such as lawn bowling, curling, and shuffleboard. So sometimes you can have an element where you prevent the opponent from scoring. Player focuses solely on their execution and attempt to be as close as possible to the target. You can have a modified version of target games. Now there are transferable skills. In order for these skills to be transferable, the games must be similar to each other. They can be grouped in divisions so that students can identify features such as tactics, rules, and skills more easily. The benefits of target games are that players must be able to demonstrate hand-eye and foot-eye accuracy. Players aim, shoot, throw, roll for a goal target. There can be synchronization across players and across numerous body parts when releasing the object. And both gross and fine motor skills are used after the flight path of the released object. Sportsmanship should always be a component of athletics. Sportsmanship are very much a component of games. We want to get past people thinking sportsmanship is being nasty all game and then giving a high five at the end. Sportsmanship are showing these pillars throughout the entire game, throughout the practice, throughout the training, throughout everything we do. Sportsmanship must be participated through the parents. And as you all become parents and your children are in athletics, the best thing you can do is not emphasize whether or not your child won or lost, whether or not your child performed well or performed badly. Best thing you can do after your child is done with their practice, done with their game, is say, I truly love watching you play. Whether they had the best day or the worst day of their life, that's about the best thing you can do. Let the coaches do the coaching, and the parents have a totally different role. So just know as a parent, it's not your job to train. It's not your job to teach the child everything there's to know. Leave that to the coaches. Now you can help your son practice or your daughter practice, but it's very much a different role than the coach. And the parent has to model the sportsmanship. So does the athlete, coach, and everyone else involved. Certain athletics have a bad name, and it's sad when you go to an athletic event and the opposing team comes out on the field and everybody boos. Or I was at a football game a year ago, and there was thousands of people chanting vulgarities at the other team, and it was sad. It made me not want to take my children to that to athletic venue when everybody's just shouting and acting like that. I'm just thinking, what is the norm here? Why are we not modeling sportsmanship? Why are we not doing better? While you're teaching during gameplay, it's very appropriate to have them play a little bit, freeze the game, and have students huddle up and discuss strategy. You give us a few strategy suggestions, and instead of, while explaining the game, then giving all the strategies, have them play for a little bit, and then stop the play and just say time out, come up with, one or two strategies that you need to try to improve, and figure out one or two things that you did that didn't work. And then it's also very appropriate to play a little bit and then call timeout and practice a play that they need to do, or practice a play that they tried doing that didn't work well to rehearse what should happen. While the students are playing, think about what is happening during the game. Is this what you want to happen? What changes changes do you need to make the students play more effectively? And as a teacher, do you need to change the rules or the game conditions? All these will help the games and teaching games more effective in your classroom.